Okay. Narendra, I'll come to you in a second. That's Finance Minister immediately after the budget.
Is not that you maintain fiscal deficit, it's the quality of fiscal deficit. The UPA also maintained a certain figure for several years, but they did it with huge cuts. There are only two ways you can maintain fiscal deficit. Either you earn more or you spend less. They maintained it by spending less. When you spend less, you compromise on growth. Year 2015 and 16 has helped me to establish the credibility of this government that after years or after ages relatively, the revised estimates are going to be higher than the budget estimates. So we have spent more, we have earned more, we have maintained this fiscal deficit of 3.9, therefore the quality of fiscal deficit is very high. It's not achieved by spending less, and that's why it's contributing to some growth. And this year, therefore, the pendulum swung in way of credibility. And having got the benefit of low oil prices and various factors, when we totaled up, with some difficulty we realized we could make it. And we haven't compromised on expenditure. I keep my fingers crossed by the end of the year we are able to reach that. But while I was discussing with people, some very eminent people whose wisdom I respect, came out with a suggestion that does India need a single point fiscal deficit or could it be a range? Could we have said it's between 3.4 and 3.6? So you have some flexibility, you don't cut down on pro-poor schemes, etc. I thought it was a point worth consideration. So whereas for this year I will stick to 3.5, for the future we'll have the wisdom of some expert opinion that could it be a narrow range? Because today it's no longer alarming fiscal deficit. You're not 5 point something. You are 3 point something, moving towards 3 and maybe lower. And therefore we can have the luxury of that range or not. I won't decide. I'll first take expert opinion, who look at models internationally, and then come back to it.
Mr. Minister, this year's nominal growth, your budget projects at 8.6%, the current year. And for the next year, your nominal growth projection is 11%. And this year, your revenue growth has been around 17%, whereas you are projecting next year a revenue growth of only 11%. And I'm also drawing your attention to the fact that on the services tax revenue front, you're only showing a growth rate of 1%. So can you just take us into this entire revenue growth numbers? Are these slightly on the lower side? You have been conservative and very modest?
I'd rather be conservative and improve. For example, I may end the current year, despite stressed private sector balance sheets, with a higher revenue. Now, current year is an exception. I'm conscious of that. Because if the prices fall to about $30, $32 of oil, then obviously I was able to pass part of the burden to the consumer, and part of the burden I took as cess, etc., which I was able to spend on infrastructure. And therefore the additional revenue measures, so if the growth is about 13% plus minus, the rest came by way of additional revenue measures. And those additional revenue measures help us. Maybe that luxury is not available in the next year, because you don't expect how much will the oil prices go down. It's a matter of speculation, but you have to have some fair assessment on that. And therefore you assume you collect as much as you did in this year, plus a little more. I think as far as the next year is concerned, one of the reasons which on nominal growth has been of concern is that for 15 months WPI has been in the negative. And therefore when you average it with CPI, that's the formulation the economists follow, even though your growth may be 7.5%, your nominal growth with 7.5%, which used to be during UPA 12 and 14%, turns out to be 8.6 because the inflation index is very low. So it will all depend on what the inflation index is, and therefore you've taken a moderate 11% growth rate as far as revenue is concerned. If we are able to collect more, then of course we'll be able to reach the target very comfortably.
Arunji, one of the central themes, seemingly from outside, seems to be that there's a budget for Bharat. Whether you look at your expenditure, you have given a huge thrust to rural distress, agri. On the taxation side too, you have leaned heavily on the rich. So is it a right surmise to make?
You see, first of all, let's come to the taxes. Collecting an additional 19,000 or so in a budget of 20 lakhs means it's a 1%. What are the items and who are the people we are taxing? You are taxing products which are environmentally harmful. The largest contribution comes from coal.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.